I don't know how he got all these up here, but 700 pounds and 500 pounds, this thing is sagging, and I sure he hopes it makes it to his place okay. We loaded it off the dock here, and now both of these are gone. I'm just waiting for the new one to come, so stay tuned. So tomorrow my laminator comes in, and I'm super stoked because, as you guys could see, I was dealing with some Facebook Marketplace laminators, essentially, where the brands were awesome and in their primes were probably the top tier laminators out there, but because of improper use, I couldn't use them. I was using them with a 30-inch roll of material. It worked great. And then when I switched over to this Epson, everything kind of changed because I went to 54-inch material, so the entire process changed. When I went to go laminate a roll, I noticed that the outsides were getting real bubbly, couldn't figure it out. I thought it was something I was doing wrong, but turns out the rolls themselves were actually warped on both machines, which is wild. And this can happen from just improper storage, low temperatures, and not covering it when you need to, or whatever the case may be. So as you guys could see in that last video, I got rid of both of those laminators. Holy shit, those were heavy. One was like 700 pounds, the other one was like 400 pounds. And it took a lot to get those here. It was a risk I took, knowing that there was a chance that they could not work. I thought I was in the clear. I was super stoked because both of those were working for 30-inch, but it's so rare that I use 30-inch material now that I have the Epson and the FC9000 at the 160 size instead of the 30-inch size. Tomorrow, I have a new top-of-the-line laminator coming that I know will not cause me any hiccups. As you guys know, as a one-man shop, anytime there's a hiccup, I'm the one who has to fix it. And I'm also the one who has to do the proofs and the shipping and everything else in between. So that delays everything, and it compounds over time, especially when I'm trying to grow the business and I can't focus on the marketing or focus on the social media as much, or focus on whatever I need to focus on that isn't troubleshooting the issues. I'm gonna show you guys the unboxing of it. I'm just gonna use my phone. I'm gonna show you guys the process that I take. This is a super cool company called Supply55 who makes this Guardian Laminator. I believe they source parts from Korea and put it together and make other stuff here in America. Up in Michigan, at least that's where the plant is that I'm talking with. Shout out to Chase at Supply55. He's helped me through it. He FaceTimed me, or Microsoft Teams or Zoom or whatever platform we were using, and showed me an entire roll-to-roll process, showed me how to keep tracking from happening. It's a heat-assisted laminator, so I'm gonna be able to use it for substrates as well as laminating stuff with the UV printer. It's not as common that I'll do that, but it's nice to have that in the future, and I'll primarily use it for cold laminating. If you guys go back on my channel, you'll notice that I went from a CJV 150 30-inch model, and then I got the FC9000 30-inch model, and I outgrew that. So it got to the point where I couldn't keep printing at that speed. I needed to increase the speed. And when both of my Mimakis took a shit, I had no option. Days before purchasing this Epson, I had already planned on buying an Epson in the near future, just was waiting for the right time. So I got this Epson. It's been truly amazing so far, and it made me realize what investing into high quality machinery can do, because while all of these machines can pretty much print the same quality no matter what scale you're at, if you look at an $8,000 printer and a $40,000 printer, solvent is solvent, and they're going to print almost identical, especially with the equal passes. The difference is speed and maintenance. I want something that I don't have to maintenance every single day, or jump in because a print streak happened or banding or anything like that. And I've had this Epson now for about a month, maybe a month and a half by now, by the time you're seeing this. And I've had zero issues related to the printer. I've had issues where they were my fault, you know, like I put the wrong print file in there, or I forgot to change the color settings, or whatever the case may be, but I've had zero issues with that. And almost the same thing with the Graphtec FC9000. There's a few things that once you figure it out, you won't have those issues. For example, when I print holographic or glitter, I just put these little squares with the registration marks over top where they should go, and it works flawlessly, okay? So it took me a little while to get through that. But now that I have that process set up, there's no hiccups with this. As an idea, I'm trying to get things as automated as possible. I'm a one-man show, so being able to focus on those things like marketing and social media, like I mentioned, are huge. Because if I'm sitting here dealing with lamination issues for 4 hours trying to figure something out, plus 4 hours I could be working on content for you guys, for this channel, or anything else. So I kind of went back down to the bare bones. I got rid of both of those lamination machines. I stripped down my CJV 150/75 down to parts and put them in thermal bags and separated everything in case the UCJV needs it, which has come in handy. The X motor, as you guys can see here, is taken apart on the side. The X motor on that went out. The grit roller was making some clunking noises when it would push through. Thanks to my guy Hyder Mamaki on Facebook, look him up. He told me, hey, the X motor and the CJV is exactly the same as the motor that's in the UCJV. So I swapped them, and at that point I was like, I'm just gonna take every piece out of this machine that I can use for this, set it aside, store it. And the biggest thing is making sure that this process is streamlined as possible with the highest possible gear. It's a bit more of an investment up front, but I think that I got enough out of this $8,000 machine that I can do that. I can invest into something like this or the high-end laminator to the point where I've seen growth, but it's capped by my inability to automate. So I'll show you guys that unboxing. You'll see that after this. It's supposed to be here tomorrow, which is super fast shipping. Everything was finalized Friday, like 7 p.m. Shipped out Monday, and it'll be here tomorrow. So super stoked. If you guys have any questions about why I chose this laminator, I'll talk more about that after the unboxing, and hopefully throughout the unboxing and through the first test lamination roll, you guys will see why I chose this laminator over some of the other competitors like GFP, the Chinese ones on Amazon, or the Seal laminators, or whatever the case may be. I want you guys to realize actually why I chose this, and it took me months to figure out which laminator to go with, and I've been talking back and forth with these guys for 4 or 5 months now, and they've been super helpful. Specifically Chase, been super helpful. He knows my business well because he follows it on Instagram. No other lamination company follows me on Instagram. So yeah, so enjoy the unboxing, enjoy the first test lamination, and let me know if you guys have any questions in the meantime. Right, so the laminator just got here. This is what it looks like when it shows up. And I reorganized the shop. I know it looks a little messy right now, but I moved the UCJV back from over there. The Epson was right here. The Graphtec was over here. I had too many machines, so I had to organize it to fit all of them. But now that I only have these machines, I can go back to the old setup. So let's set this up. It says slide mobile stand feet into stand legs and secure with short bolts. Just did that, and now I need to get the short bolts out, which I'm assuming are these. attach wheels to the bottom of feet using screws. Be sure to place the wheels with brakes on the front stand. All right. All right, we got the laminator all set up. I apologize for the gap in the video from when I was setting it up to where it's fully set up. I got it built and then my phone died, and then I had to FaceTime with Chase over at Supply55 because he said he was going to give me some tips and show me through in a little small roll. He gave me some awesome tips. So I did about 30 feet here, as you can see, maybe 20 feet, and it did it perfectly. There was essentially no tracking at all. The material that I get, which is General Formulations 402 matte, isn't ever perfect as far as the width goes. Okay, so when they cut these things, they're not a perfect 54 inches, and maybe my material isn't either. So between those two, you're always going to have just the tiniest amount of overhang, whether it's a hair or 2 hairs or 3 hairs. You're always going to have a little bit of overhang, and that's totally okay because the Graphtec doesn't get affected by that. If I had maybe like that much overhang, then it would start getting stuck to the actual base, and which is, as you can see before, I used to just push it over to avoid any overhang, but in the past I've had it hang over maybe just a little bit and it was totally fine. So I'm not concerned about that. I'm just happy that I was able to start this roll and then walk away and do other things, come back when it was close to finish and cut it, and it was good to go. There's no mess ups, there's no bubbling. I've got another roll to do as well, which once this is done printing, I will do that roll, and that'll be the true test. So that's what's coming up next. I'm gonna do this roll and show you guys how I'm gonna be using this laminator. All right, guys, I finally got everything put together. I'm super impressed with the quality of this. I've got the Guardian Laminator and the take-up reel all put together, as you guys can see in the last video. My phone died a little bit towards the end of it, so I apologize for any skipping between the build to now. This thing is a beast. As soon as my phone died, I went ahead and charged it a little bit, and then I FaceTimed Chase over at Supply55, and he walked me through pretty much every tip and trick that you can do. And we're gonna do another call today to kind of clarify everything and make sure I understand properly, which is super cool. Not any other laminator companies are doing this without charging a shit ton of money. So I did a 20-foot roll already, and I showed you guys that a little bit in the last video, but I wanna go more in depth on how he showed me the best way to do roll to roll. It'll allow you to have no bubbles. allow no warping in the material. It'll allow you to have no tracking. It could apply to other laminators as well, but for this video, I'm specifically talking about this Guardian Laminator and this take-up reel. It's the next morning. I was going to do another video last night, but I didn't leave here until about 10 p.m. The laminator got here like at 5 p.m. So I didn't want to be home too late, so I decided to go ahead and just refilm some of this stuff in the morning. So here we are. The number one thing I've noticed so far about this laminator is the control knob that allows the speed. You can go super slow speed, so that way your hands and your mind can react a little bit quicker than any mistakes that might happen at the beginning when you're setting things up. This is huge. My last green one that you saw in the first video that I got rid of, it was super jittery. You know, you'd move the knob a little bit and it'd jitter until you got to the point where you had the preset that you wanted. But that causes streaks every time you would laminate, and I really appreciate the finite tuning in this. And there's also a foot pedal and the heat assist. It's one setting. There's no changing the temperatures, which I like personally, because with the seal laminator that I also got rid of that you saw in the first video, there was 3 or 4 different settings, and each setting had a micro setting in between it, which nailing that down can be tough. You know, just trusting the laminator to use the proper heat, especially for what I'm doing, it's super helpful because I can just click one button and then go. One of the main reasons that I chose this laminator over other competitors, and I'm not knocking any other competitor because some of those other brands are super solid and I'm sure have just as good quality. I'm sure some are even better, but I personally like support and communication, and Supply55 has been amazing with that. You know, like I said before, they follow me on Instagram, so they see my day-to-day operations, and that means they're able to assist anytime I have an issue or if I have a new idea that I want to try out. They know that I was primarily printing stickers, so when I was interested over these past 4 or 5 months in getting a laminator, they walked me through how I would use my machine and why this specific laminator is the best for stickers. When I got my other 2 laminators, it took honestly about 6 tries before I got it down right. But he said, look, get rid of the tray and I'll show you a better way. And there's no silvering, there's no tracking. Honestly, I'm just super impressed with this. Another big reason that I went with this machine over others is, I know this is very American of me and not all of my followers have the same philosophy or outlook, but anytime I have the opportunity to not buy a Chinese made product or a product that is mostly sourced in China, I take that. I try to support American businesses as much as possible, which Supply55 is in their plant or their shop up in Michigan. Most of the stuff that they source this from is all from Korea. They do a lot of the service and adjustments when it gets to Michigan. And lastly, another reason why I chose this machine is for automation. As you guys know, I'm trying to automate this business as much as possible. That way I can focus on other things like marketing, social media, ads, cold outreach, and doing things actively to grow this business, rather than constantly be trying to solve issues or monitor my machines. I was able to start the roll once I realized, all right, the take-up's taken up fine, there's no curling, there's no tracking. I went over there and just chat with him for 10 minutes while this was doing its thing, came back towards the end and no issues. I guess over the next few rolls and the next few months, we'll figure out if there are gonna be any issues with the automation side, but as of now, there shouldn't be any issues with that. So let's go ahead and dive into the step-by-step on how I actually laminate an entire roll. I've got one printed over here on my Epson. I'm gonna pull that off, mount it, and I'll show you that process as well. And then we're gonna go ahead and laminate it, and I'll show you, like I said, step by step on how I was instructed to use this laminator for roll-to-roll laminating. Let's get started. And again, I'm still figuring this out myself, so let's go ahead and feed it through. All right, now I wanna make sure 2 things. He said make sure this is always on the top because it locks in. So let's go ahead, 69.5, I believe, is gonna be my point. So a little bit more over, not much. And I can micro adjust it once I actually get it on the machine. So let's go ahead and load this up. If you're not strong, this could be tough, okay? So I got that mounted. Next, what we're gonna do is, I don't need this because this is mostly for sheet to sheet, not for roll to roll. If you feed this over top of here and it doesn't track perfectly, you will run into some curling issues and some bubbling. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna remove this. I'm gonna put it over here. I'll make a little rack for this or something to make sure that it's not annoying to put here every single time. So first things first, as you can see, I already have a piece fed from the last machine here. That way I don't need to worry about putting cardboard in or anything like that. Going forward, I'm just going to use the previous piece of material and feed quite a bit. It has this little channel here that you can use as a cut channel. And keep in mind, if this process might seem tedious, I would rather do a couple extra steps to ensure that I have no laminating issues, because an entire printed roll can take some time to print, and that's a lot of cost and material. So I'd rather not half-ass this entire process. I'd rather have the perfect process down and it takes me 5 extra minutes than to be dealing with 15 minutes of troubleshooting or reprinting for an hour or whatever the case may be. So there's a couple bars here and it can get kind of confusing. The laminate is right here. I feed it under this bar underneath, the thicker one, and I brought it up here and then I taped it. And then I reversed and then I peeled it back essentially and folded it within each other. I can do another video in the future on how I set my laminator up, but this is almost universal. Like, I think every single laminator is going to be exactly the same. So if you have a laminator, this is the way to do it. You feed it down under the bar, over here, reverse this bar, peel back the laminate, and then push it through with either a piece of vinyl or over top of itself. This next part, it can be very tricky, okay? So I'm gonna go ahead and show it to you guys. There's a bar right here, okay? There's a small one, this is for that shelf, but this one right here is for feeding through the material. As you can see here, there's a small gap, so it can be tough to pull this through. And it might feel like you're doing something wrong, but I promise you're not. This is the way to go. And you will probably drop it, and I'm gonna get used to it, but the way he showed it to me made me realize how much better this way is of doing it. I'm gonna feed this through a little bit, right? This other piece, just until I get to that point. So you can see it's just barely over top of it, okay? Now, I left quite a bit of this blank on purpose. This gives me the opportunity to see, all right, so this is about a ½ an inch off track. So what I need to do is push this over while holding the middle tight to make sure that this lines up with this. Now, it's not gonna be perfect because no material company makes an exact 54-inch cut. If I push this against this, you can see it's damn near perfect. If I go over a little bit more, it's perfect. Now we're gonna go over here and check this side, and it's damn near perfect. Cool. So what he showed me to do is pull this up a little bit, and I'm gonna just push this right up against the laminate. That will not mess up the cut or anything like that, so I'm not concerned about that. If it was a gap this big, I'd be concerned. So what you're gonna do now is you're gonna feed this through. However, you wanna make sure that you're gonna push this through. Don't get your fingers stuck in here. It's kind of tough because of how thick this material is and how slow I'm going. But as soon as you get it, it'll start feeding through, okay? It doesn't take much pressure. I'm not asking you to stick your whole finger in there because that's not responsible. Now, as you can see, I'm going forward. And you can see here, it's pretty tight all the way across. This bar really helps keep it straight. So I'm gonna go ahead and, I have it on the 3rd dial. I'm gonna go ahead and start this. As you can see, it's coming right through with no problem. Awesome. Once it gets to a certain point, I'm gonna load that roll onto the take-up reel so that I can tape it. And let's go ahead and wait till it gets to this next barcode so that I'm not, awesome, so that way I'm not messing with any stickers. So let's go ahead and grab this roll. So this take-up reel is super simple. I don't know the technology he was talking about, but what it'll do is it'll adjust to the speed that it is feeding through. Okay, so you can see this is floating, But as soon as I put this roll on here and it starts to attach the feed, it's not gonna go that fast. It's gonna go at the speed that it needs to. I don't know how they do that, but yeah. All right, so I'm gonna attach this just like any other machine. All right, so there is a lock here and a lock on the other side to lock this in place. I've got my piece of tape here. Stuff. So what I'm gonna do is right in the middle. Right there. Okay, turn this on. Cool, now this is on 3, so I'm gonna bring this down to 1, okay? All right, so I have the setting on 1. I'm gonna start feeding this through. So I've got the take-up reel on the back, nice and taut, or tight, like a tiger. This seems to be feeding perfectly. Let me check the other side. So I'm gonna increase this to the next level. Now I'm monitoring it for the first couple times, maybe 3 or 4 times that I use it, so that I know that I'm actually doing what I need to be doing correctly. So you can see what I mean here. This has been exactly the same since after the first foot. So this is definitely something that I could probably just learn to get used to, because if this was an actual tracking issue, it would have kept getting wider and wider and wider and wider until the point where that side wasn't actually touching the stickers. So as you can see here, it's getting towards the end. So what I'm gonna do is stop it now. Probably could have stopped it a little bit earlier, but I'm gonna go through and I'm gonna cut right on this channel here so that it's a perfectly straight cut. So here I've got these 2 rolls, as you can see. One's a little bit thicker than the other. Both of these done on the machine. Look how flush it is. I mean, you can't ask for much more than that. So you can see here, it's cutting the roll. I've got the roll on the rear bars on the GraphTech, and it'll go through and detect the barcode automatically. I have everything lined up to that side so that it just, boom, follows right along every single time, and it's cutting perfectly. Hell yeah.